You are listening to I Am Refocused Radio with your host, Shamaya Reed. This show is designed to inspire you to live your purpose and regain your focus. And now, here's your host, Shamaya Reed.
Hey, welcome to I Am Refocused Radio. We are here once again, and man, today, like any other time, man, we have another special guest. We're going to be talking to Khiana Noel. She's a singer, songwriter, producer, artist based out of Nashville, Tennessee. Man, she was born in Germany, but she made her way to the States with her mom and dad and sister. She grew up in North Carolina and began taking trips to Nashville, but we're going to learn a little bit more about her music journey. First, I want to welcome Khiana to the show and say, how you doing?
Thanks for having me.
So, man, before we talk too much about your music in the beginning, take us back with the audience and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh, gosh. Well, I'm Khiana. Thank you so much for having me on today. You pretty much hit the nail on the head. I was born in Germany. I moved to California when I was 1 with my family, so only in Germany for a brief amount of time. But yeah, and then we moved to North Carolina when I was a little bit older, and I grew up there, went to high school, graduated high school early because I wanted to dive right into music, and I'm lucky my parents are super supportive of that. So they started taking me to Nashville. Me and my mom together went on trips down there, and I started kind of meeting people and learning more about music, and just dived headfirst as soon as I was old enough to move out.
And when it comes to Nashville, what type of music were you into? Was it a certain genre of music?
Yeah, when I first started writing music, I got connected into the country scene a little bit, and I think that's kind of that's the most prominent music genre in Nashville. So that was kind of where I started. But as I kind of developed my songwriting and my artistry, I focused more on pop music, which is what I do now.
And did you have a mentor or anybody in the industry that kind of helped coach you, or did your parents know people that helped you develop you as an artist?
So my parents are both artists themselves, but not in the music industry. My mother was a professional ballerina her entire life, and my dad works in the prosthetic wig and makeup field for like movies and whatnot. So they're both very supportive of the arts, but they didn't know anything about the music industry. So when I went to Nashville on one of my first trips, I was actually, I was in Tennessee. I was in Gatlinburg for the Smoky Mountain Songwriter Festival. And I met Marty Dodson and Clay Mills, who run Songtown USA. And they were the first professional songwriters I had ever met. And so I guess they kind of became my mentors, and I kept in contact with them while I was back in North Carolina, taking trips down to Nashville as often as I could. And yeah, they've mentored me throughout my entire career. I write with Marty every other week. We're still really close.
And how was that process like? Because you mentioned that started back when you was in North Carolina. So did y'all work on projects that you had to release, or was it more like educational? They were showing you the ropes and you just learning as you were going?
Yeah, I always joke that was kind of my college experience. I didn't go to college traditionally. My university, I guess, was coming to Nashville and learning from them. So it kind of was a little bit of both. They taught me pretty much everything I know about songwriting. In the beginning, they were really kind to listen to my early songs and, give me advice on how to grow my writing and get better and develop. So they did a lot of educational stuff with me. And then I think as I got a little bit better with my writing, we started working together, writing together and collabing on things. So it was a little bit of both. It was mostly educational in the beginning. And I mean, I feel like every time I talk to one of them, I learned something. So the education never stops, but we didn't start collabing until a little bit further down the road.
And once again, we're talking to Khiana, and right here on I Am Refocused Radio. And you as an artist, you you've been celebrating some recent success. I mean, you had over 1 million streams. That's very difficult to do. And
I just hit 2 million on a project, which is really exciting.
That's
I've got, it's grown really fast. It was, it's one of those things where in the beginning, the ball is rolling really, really slowly. And then things start picking up, and it's just been getting better since.
And speaking of that, you have been becoming the producer, producing the sound of who you are, not just doing the vocals, but actually doing the production. And you wearing the producer hat, with writing skills, how has that process been like, and being able to do both in both worlds?
It's been a whirlwind. I started just focusing on songwriting, and that I think has always been my biggest passion. If I could paint the vision for my life and success where I want it, it would really be in the writing world. The idea of being famous or being on giant stages has never been what appeals to me, but standing in the crowd and watching, 10,000 people holding hands and singing the words to your song, and they don't even know it's you. That's kind of my top tier vision. But I recognized kind of early on in my writing career that it's really expensive to demo songs and to be able to get them out to the world for people to hear and bigger artists and stuff. So I started learning to produce because I was waitressing at the time and didn't have the extra money to demo all of the songs I was writing to have them be heard by the people that needed to. So it started out like that for me. And I started just producing my own demos so I could send them to publishers and other people, and kind of fell in love with the art of making the actual music, not just writing the words and the melody, but being able to create sounds that express, what the song is trying to say. And so from there, I just kind of started doing it for other people, other artists that wanted to release music. I started producing for them. And then 2020 hit and COVID hit, and I had, a full year of not leaving my house. And that was when I kind of was like, okay, what if I produce my own music and put it out? And that's where this all started.
And you have recent songs that are out right now on Spotify. And what can the listeners expect? Is the album due to come out in the near future, or what does that look like for you?
That is definitely the goal. It's kind of hard when you're self-producing to be super critical about, or I guess it's easy to be critical. That's the problem. So in deciding what I want to go on the full-length album, I'm really taking my time with it. So I haven't set a release date yet for it because I want to make sure that all the songs flow together nicely and represent, the topics I want to talk about. But I'm dropping singles consistently. I'm trying to do once a month, get a new song out, so that people can kind of hear where the story's going. And then when the full album does come out, it'll all come together and make sense.
In your music, you covered various different topics that are dealing with, mental health, friendship, heartbreak, body image, all that stuff. Talk to us a little bit about some of the meaning behind some of the content that you're trying to put out there for people to enjoy.
The meaning is just, it's my life stories. When I decided, because being an artist has always sort of scared me. I know I mentioned not having that dream of being famous, and a lot of that, I think, for me has come through life struggles, insecurities, things that have held me back, etc. And so when I decided to release music, I kind of had a conversation with myself, and I was like, okay, if I'm going to release music, I'm only going to be honest in it. And I'm going to talk about the things that are sort of therapeutic for me to get off my chest, and coming from that place, all of the things that I talk about in my music and what's coming up is from personal experiences. And so some of it might not be pretty, but it's honest. And I think if I'm dealing with certain things, that there has to be someone else in the world that is. And, at the height of my issues with mental health and body image and friendship and heartbreak and all those things, what I always turn to is music in those moments. And so I want to create something that can do that for someone else.
Once again, we're talking to Khiana Noel on I Am Refocused Radio. And how important is it for you as an artist and producer, because you're producing music as well, to stay true to your fingerprint as far as your sound?
I think it's important to some degree to kind of make sure everything sounds cohesive, but I want to be really experimental with the stuff that I'm putting out, especially when it comes to the production side. I think the writing and the melodies that I have in my head will always be me because they're coming from, that place in my brain. But when it comes to sound, I really just want to try new things and get creative with it. And, I think as I continue to release stuff, I'm sure my sound will develop and change a little bit over time. But I just want to get creative with it.
And as far as where you are in your music career, has there been studios in Tennessee that you like to frequent to, or how do you have your workflow set up?
Well, I'm lucky enough to have a studio space in my house, which has been awesome, especially during COVID. A lot of studios have been closed. So a lot of it is created in my house, which is great. But I love collabing with people. And a lot of the times when I'm writing with other lyricists or artists, they'll have a studio space that I go to. And it's just nice to have a little bit of a breath of fresh air and get to work with different people on it.
And I had to go back because I found it interesting that you were born in Germany. Do you have anything in Germany that sticks with you today as far as anything from childhood? How did all that, take place as far as your parents being in Germany? Were you military? How was all that set up?
I was not military. I was just German.
Okay.
But my parents met in Germany when my mom was dancing professionally, and my dad was German, my mom's American. She was touring over there. So they met in Germany and then had me and my older sister. And I've gone back to visit. So I've gotten to see a little bit more what it's like. I was a baby when I moved. But I think, I don't know, I have distinct memories from trips and being over there. I think it's just a cool aspect of my life. I definitely want to go live over there at some point in the near future. I think the music scene is really cool over there. They do a lot of electronic and dance music and stuff like that. So I'd love to go back at some point and explore the music scene there and collab with some people. I don't know. I feel very closely tied to it, but also so distant because it's been a while since I've been back.
And I was just about to ask you that question. Were there any music artists or producers from Germany that you take a liking to or you follow?
Not specifically any individuals, but the music scene over there really intrigues me because it's interesting in European countries. American music blows up over there, which is I find fascinating. And so I would love to go over there at some point and do some shows and meet people. And I love the electronic dance, EDM kind of vibe that they have going on in their music. So I'd love to go be a part of that and collab with people and get involved with the music scene a little bit over there.
And you have worked with various artists as well so far. Has there been any projects that kind of they kind of stick out for you as artists that you are very proud of? Or
yeah, I feel like I've been really blessed to work with amazing artists. That's the cool thing about Nashville is you kind of, or the music industry in general, you know, you get here and everyone has this dream of working with Ariana Grande, you know, of course, that sounds amazing. But when you look around and you see the circles that you're in, and you kind of see the wave coming up of those new artists, it's really cool to be on the ground level with someone and help them write their project and work with them. I got to do a really cool collab with my friends Caslow, and we have a song together out right now. I'm really proud of that one. And I've gotten to write for some really awesome artists like Huang. He just hit 2 million on our song together, which is awesome. And yeah, I've been really lucky to work with some really cool artists that I believe in and I think are going to be the next big things in the industry.
And how exciting is that? I mean, I know that's an obvious answer, but how exciting is that to be able to see where you started and where you are today? Do you think the roots of the good old days in North Carolina where you had your mentors play a big role?
I think it's a huge role. I mean, I try to remind myself that on a daily because you hit certain pinpoints that you want to in your career and it almost, you're like, okay, what's next? But I think about 14-year-old Khiana, like her biggest dream was just to move to Nashville. And that was like seeing the stars. And if I was able to show 14-year-old Khiana the stuff that she's accomplished now, I mean, she would just be completely mind blown. So it's really cool. And I think it's important to kind of remind myself about those things and celebrate all the little successes and not just focus on what's next.
And you mentioned earlier about how you had a lot of time on your hands, and a lot of us had a lot of time on our hands last year. How has that impacted your just creative process? Have you birthed some new ideas and how you approach making new songs, or have you just been able to have a stack of library, of content?
Yeah, last year, I mean, I think for all of us was a huge change. And last year uncovered a lot for me. I started going back to therapy, started, training with my trainer and doing a bunch of things to get my mental health right. And having that much time on my hands to kind of like evaluate where I'm at in life and what I'm doing opened up a lot of doors, both good and bad. And it's given me enough time to kind of process some things and work through things. And that alone has led to a huge amount of creativity and inspiration, especially in the kind of songwriting that I'm, working on. It is about harder topics, mental health and things like that. And, sometimes that's uncomfortable to sit in, but when you have a whole year in your home to do that, I mean, it just gave me thousands of song ideas.
Once again, talking to Khiana Noel here on I Am Refocused Radio. And as the artist that you are and a producer, I gotta say that because there's not enough, in my opinion, there's not enough women being represented in the producer world out there. What's your take on that as far as being a female producer as well?
It's really crazy. I remember reading an interview with Max Martin, and he talked about how less than 1% of the industry is female producers. And I don't know 100% how accurate that number is today, but I know it's small. And I don't know why that is. I don't know what the gap there is, why there aren't more women represented in production. But it's something I think that any artist that wants to can learn how to do. And it's really fun and it's interesting to like sit down and view music in a different way. When I listen to songs now, where I used to just listen to the words and the melody, now I'm hearing 1,000 other things that are inspirational. So I don't really know what the gap is there with that, but I think it'd be really cool to kind of close it a little bit because I think there's a lot of really talented girls out there that have a lot more to say in music, and that's possible with production.
Yeah, because I've heard some fire female producers out there. I mean, I know the producer tags and, you know, DJ tags are pretty, you know, heavy. But, man, in the production world, I've heard some fire. I mean, just go on Instagram and type. I think there might be a hashtag female producer. There's some very, like, dope sounds out there. But once again, man, 2 rounder talking to Khiana Noel. What's next for you? What do you see happening in the near future? Are you going to be doing more producing more, or are you going to do a balance between the two, producing and songwriting?
Yeah, I see a lot of really cool things coming up. You know, obviously I'm going to keep working on this album and my own music, but I want to keep also writing for other artists and collabing with them, whether it be production, co-writing, or, you know, featuring as an artist on their stuff. I want to kind of dip my hand in as many pots as I can. I just love working with people and creating music, and any form I can do that in is awesome. I think in the future, you know, not too far away, I'll probably be doing some more live shows and stuff like that, which will be really, really exciting. But yeah, I just want to keep creating with people and producing for other artists, writing for other artists, and also putting my own stuff out.
Yeah, I don't do this on every show, but sometimes I just do it when I feel it. So if someone were to hear this, right, or they just hear your songs on Spotify or whatever, if you can work with anybody in the industry, like anybody, like they waiting to call you up in like 24 hours, who would you want to collab with and why?
Oh gosh. Writing wise, I definitely want to work with Julia Michaels. She has been one of my biggest inspirations. Sometimes I'll listen to her lyrics, and she has a way of putting things that I would never think of. And just her honesty in her words, I think, is incredible. So I would love to work with her. I'd love to write a song with her. Max Martin or Ian Kirkpatrick for production would be unreal. I listen to everything they produce and put out, and you know, I've tried many times as I was learning production, to practice by replicating their tracks, and they just do things that are unreal, and I just want to take notes from them.
No, that's what's up, man. And while we are about to wind down on this interview, how can people stay in connection with you on social media, and if someone wanted to book you, how can they do that as well?
Social media is the best way. I'm always active on my Instagram, which is just my first and middle name, Khiana Noel. So you can DM me on there, chat with me on there. That's where I'm most active. And then my Spotify, if you want to keep up with the music, is also under Khiana Noel.
But once again, talking to Khiana Noel right here on I'm Refocused Radio. I want to say thank you for taking time in your busy schedule talking to us today.
Thank you so much for having me. This was awesome.